Hey guys, this is Elizabeth from Gabriel Family Adventures, and today I thought I'd share a little bit of something that I've learned over the course of the last 9 cruises that I've been on, and that is, what do you do if your cruise ship is delayed for a few hours, for a few days, has to make a detour, kind of all of the sort of troubleshooting, strange things that can happen when you're dealing with a ship with several thousand people on it. So here we go. So first thing is that something to know about cruise ships is that if something happens to the ship that is their fault. So for example, we were sailing on Princess several years ago and something went wrong with the ship. They actually had to delay the debarkation of the next trip, which was ours, by 2 whole days. And then the day we left, we were actually delayed in port. We didn't leave until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So if it's something kind of like an airline, if it's the fault of the ship, you tend to have a lot more recourse. And what that means is that they don't want to lose your business and they don't want to, diminish their reputation. So what they'll do, and what they did in our case, is that they will reschedule and rearrange the port stops of your cruise. And then they will usually offer you, in addition to this new itinerary, they'll give you the option to cancel, or they'll say, okay, here's your new itinerary, plus here's a discount on a future cruise. And then on top of it, if you're especially inconvenienced the way, most passengers were, because it was a 2-day delay and, people are flying in, getting hotels, all of that, they'll usually try to help rectify the flight and the hotel situation. And they'll also give you onboard credits and things like that on the cruise that you're currently going on. So they do really try to make up for anything that goes wrong with the ship itself. Now, what about if your cruise is changed because of political reasons? So we had a cruise planned to go to Cuba, and we were supposed to leave in September of 2019, and I've wanted to go to Cuba for a very long time, and for many, many years, that's not practical. I know there were ways to get to Cuba, but I'm a rule follower, so we're like, oh, this is great. We'll go on a cruise. And you stayed overnight in Havana, so I thought we could just have this awesome time. Well, considering our current administration, they changed the policy on traveling to Cuba, so that cruises were no longer allowed to go there. And it was implemented about a month, give or take, maybe 2 months, before our scheduled debarkation. Oh, man. So we were hoping at first, when we saw the news, we're like, okay, well, maybe they'll grandfather in, 6 months worth of cruises or something. Fingers crossed, right? Well, they didn't. They were like, effective this day, boom, no more trips to Cuba. So what are you gonna do? So the cruise line couldn't do anything about it, right? This is an administrative decision. So what they did is they sent everyone who was booked, they said, okay, we're gonna change where we go. So instead of stopping in Cuba and a couple other places, they were gonna reroute and stop in, Key West and the Bahamas and stuff like that. And they said, if you wanna keep your itinerary, you're welcome to, plus here's a discount on a future cruise. Or you can cancel with no penalty whatsoever, because it's not your fault that trips to Cuba were canceled. So in that case, we just canceled our trip. We'd been to the Bahamas, we've been to Key West. They're great, they're beautiful, but it wasn't somewhere that we were looking forward to going to in September. So what do you do and what recourse do you have if your cruise has a medical emergency or 2 while you're on board and your ship has to reroute? So this happened to us this last summer, and we were in the Baltic Sea, and on 2 separate occasions we had to change course and head as fast as this massive ship could go to get to the availability of the Swedish Coast Guard to pick up patients who had had some kind of emergency on the ship. And the concern was, well, then what happens to your port stops? Uh-oh. And so the nice thing about that, and this is the same thing that actually holds true for a delay in leaving port, which is actually what happened in our cruise just a couple days ago. And we had a 6-hour fog delay because I guess in Galveston, there's some days and certain times of year where it's super foggy and they close the port so ships can't come in to let passengers off, and then because they just closed the whole thing. So at least we were on the other side of it where we were delayed in Galveston, whereas the poor folks on the ship, some of them ran the risk of missing their flights, which is tricky. The cruise line will try to work with you, and in that case, that one thing to think about is maybe booking on like Southwest Airlines or someone that it's just easier to reschedule. But what do you do in that situation when you're delayed by several hours? Well, something to think about is that these ships, because they know stuff happens, right? When you have literally thousands of people of all age ranges, all levels of health and well-being, they know stuff is going to come up. So they do try to implement a few policies. So for example, if you're over 24 weeks pregnant, you're not allowed to go on a cruise ship. Right. So like, oh no, we don't want any babies born on the ship. But what if you have a medical emergency? Well, they do have medical facilities on the ship itself, but if it's something very serious, they will take your health as a priority. And so they will try to get you to the nearest medical facility as quickly as possible. So they'll reroute and book it, and you will feel the ship start to speed up. And it doesn't mean they're flying through the sea or the ocean or wherever, right? But it is faster. One of the times we were rerouted, I was attempting to run on a treadmill and I thought I was gonna fall off and kill myself. So I got off the treadmill, but they'll reroute you, and then they'll kind of adjust their port stop schedule. So they'll really try to stay on the same itinerary. Worst case scenario, they'll change a few things. They might switch around stops, especially if you're doing kind of an out and back itinerary. The other thing they'll do is they may have to, you get in an hour or two later than normal, but they'll extend it, or maybe they'll cut it short just a little tiny bit, but they'll really try to work with you so that you can get the most out of your port stops, and they'll adjust their speeds. They kind of build in extra time because they know stuff can come up, whether it's the weather or health or something like that. So they're really, cruises, these major cruise lines have been around for a very long time, and they will definitely try to make the best of it because, of course, customer satisfaction is the utmost importance to them. So regardless of what cruise line you're on, they're really going to make it happen so that you can get the most out of your experience. And if there's things out of their control or something that comes up, mechanical issue, political issue, they'll make the best of it, and they will really try to work with you so that you can get something discounted in the future or a better experience on the ship itself if you choose to continue to sail. So have faith that even if some weird things happen in the world, you should be fine. And if you have any questions or comments or any other kind of wacky thing that happened to you on a cruise in the past, please don't hesitate to comment below and subscribe to this channel for more resort reviews, cruise reviews, vacation reviews in the future. Thank you so much.